All right, man. Let's talk about the Lions taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Sunday fun day. Um, Sunday fun day. Sunday night fun night. How about that? In the big game, the Packers. Excuse me. The Packers just had a game with them, and it was a slobber knocker. Flat out, it was a slobber knocker. It was an old throwback game. I believe the Lambeau Field had a lot to do with what was going on. A lot of guys slipping and all that type of stuff. And we'd be in Philly, and I, check the far forecast. But week 11, man, this is a good one. This is a matchup that people thought was inevitable last year. I believe until the Detroit Lions start dropping like flies. And ultimately, the Eagles was able to get revenge. They were able to get revenge on the Washington Commanders. Okay. We got revenge on the Commanders. People may think this may be a preview of the NFC Championship game or NFC playoff game, depending on how it go. Now, both have their trials and tribulations this year, and they continue to find ways to win despite catastrophic things to the naked eye happening. Okay. You might be like, what is the catastrophic things that's happening? Well, for Philadelphia, if you don't know, they're dealing with a new offensive coordinator. Last offensive coordinator before Kellen Moore, it was trash, and Shane Steichen, who doing great things in Indianapolis, with quarterbacks, he worked turning water into wine. Shit, you know what I'm saying? He was the original coordinator and that had success with Jalen Hurts. And it's like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Like without him, Jalen Hurts is trash. And then Kellen Moore came in and they did some things. And this year, I think what happened was the NFL, they figured out how to stop the run and force Jalen Hurts to beat them. And then you got the whole AJ Brown is crying about this and crying about that, right? So yes, it's a whole little storyline for real, right? And for us, it's the offensive coordinators. It was this whole story was the coordinators, and people who really don't watch the Lions like that, they see the points being scored. But the fans who actually watch the Lions like that, they notice that the offense hasn't looked as fluid as it should look. Right? The offense doesn't have the fluidity that it once did. And it didn't have a rhythm or nothing. Like, if you look at the points, you don't watch the games, you see the highlights, you'll be like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Oh, the Lions are fucking fantastic offensively. But in reality, that's not the reality. And now you had Dan Campbell calling the games and they getting into a rhythm. And it's like, okay, now it was the offensive coordinator. So defensively, they both had a bunch of injuries on both sides. And also they've had suspensions, whether it's Brian Branch, whether it's Jalen Carter for spitting on somebody, getting ejected from the game or whatever that was. And Jalen Carter, which I think is when he's in shape and at his best, he's the best defensive player in football. That's my opinion. I've been saying it. But when he's not healthy, when he's not in shape, then it is what it is. They brought Brandon Graham back from Detroit. From Michigan, he is from Detroit. So, ultimately, our defensive is still issues. Kirby down, on DJ Reed down. We got some issues. I think Terrion's in concussion protocol. So we both trying to overcome. And I think, them making Jaleb Phillips, from what I seen, as the primary pass rusher, he had an impact in that game with Green Bay. He was very disruptive. And they traded a third round pick for a guy who had two significant lower body injuries. So it was a gamble. And it was a guy that Miami didn't use in the right way. They used him as a traditional linebacker and a situational pass rusher. Okay. So that's something also to look at when you thinking about the situation. So, on paper, it seems to be a very, very good matchup. I must say myself. Yeah, it seems to be a really, really good matchup. So, let's kind of get into the Pacifics, the lines, the open. In the open lines, you got to understand they come out in the off season. I think right after like free agency or something like that happens, that's when they come out, or something like that. But let's get into it. So as of right now, the Lions are 2.5 point underdogs. Usually the house is the home favorite is usually a 3 point favorite. You know what I'm saying? By default. Okay. Over and under is 46 and a half. The money line for the Lions, if you bet 100, you win 20. You got to bet 140 to win 100 from the Eagles. They give the Eagles a 50.8% chance to win. Lions 48.8% chance to win. Right now, Jalen Hurts is at 1,860 yards passing, 16 TDs, only one pick. So he's taking care of the football. Jared Goff, 2,235 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Jahmyr Gibbs, 693. Saquon, even in a down year, 479 for TDs, still not shabby, still on track for 1,000 yards. Even in a hypothetical 16-game season, they don't play 17 games, which he didn't play last year. St. Brown, 693, 64 catches, 8 yards. And Devontae Smith, he does a lot of things down the field, 657, 48 receptions, 3 TDs, and he seems to be the go-to receiver for Philadelphia right now. 807 sacks. Ojamole, 4 sacks from the D tackle position. That's dope. Zach Bryan, 72 tackles. Jack Campbell, 82, who's been probably the best linebacker I've seen this year. As of right now, you have questionable back, Jacob Sellers, the running back, Pat O'Connor, which we kind of thin at defensive end, questionable knee, Kirby Joseph, questionable knee, Terry Arnano, questionable concussion, and not sure what's going on with Rocco Rodriguez when he will return. Jay Alexander, questionable knee. Yeah, he got traded from the Baltimore over there. Cam Jernigan's good center, questionable knee. Willie Lampkin, center, IR, he out. Aziz Olorji, one of the guys that we wanted to get, he out with a hamstring on IR. And Marcus Epps. So the last 5 games, Philly is 2-5. They won the last 3. Green Bay, New York, Minnesota, all good wins in the last 5, same as us. We 3-2, lost to Kansas City, which, that was a bullshit ass game. We had a bunch of injuries and they cheated, but Minnesota legit put hands, foot, elbows, and toes on us, and that's what got the change call and got the win versus Washington. And ultimately, I'm gonna jump into this, and if you had to ask me what do the Philadelphia Eagles need to do to be successful in this game, offensively, I'm gonna start with Philly. Offensively, they need to establish a rhythm. You can't wait on one explosive plays. I don't think you can sit on your hands, and if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you can wait on explosive plays. You have to find ways to put drives together. You have to find ways to pick up first downs, and also not compromise your quarterback. Your quarterback is not turning the ball over, which is giving you a chance to win. But also a lot of these games are being lost or being close because he's not making the play. So honestly, they have to find ways if they're not going to make plays, a bunch of explosive plays where they're not putting together 10, 12 play drives and they just going to live off explosive. They need more explosive plays or they need to find ways to move the chains. And I think for them, the problem is Devontae Smith is good down the field. A.J. Brown is great stretching the field. Who's really that St. Brown type of guy for them that, go back to the day, or Brandon Marshall, possession receiver. Who is that real possession receiver, St. Brown? Who's really, even Zach Ertz, who really going to move the chain, get to the sticks and move the chains underneath? And I really think that's the problem. And I think if they're going to solve it, they're going to find a way to put, it's hard to put A.J. Brown on timing routes. It's not because of A.J. Brown, it's because him and whatever happened between him and Jalen Hurts behind the scenes, it ain't going to be fixed. Down the line, maybe they have a Kobe and Shaq moment. It ain't gonna be fixed. So it's hard to have him move the sticks because they don't have camaraderie right now. That's it. So when you have somebody like St. Brown that moves the sticks the way he moved the sticks for Goff, there's a trust there. There's a camaraderie there. There's a relationship there. And right now, they don't have that. So really, they need to find a way to get Saquon the ball underneath, passing the ball to Saquon. And Devontae may be too small to go over the middle, and they need to find a way to move the sticks. In my opinion, with Zach Ertz, they got to put Zach Ertz in situations where he can move those sticks, man. That's what it's gonna have to be. Zach Ertz is gonna have to be the guy to move the sticks. So if you asking me, Zach Ertz has got to be the guy to and Saquon Barkley, Johan Dotson. I believe he can be somebody that can kind of move the sticks. Not the biggest target, but from what I watched, but for them, I think it's gonna be Saquon catching the ball out the backfield, moving the sticks. And I think once they start moving the sticks and people starting having to respect what they do, intermediate, short, and over the middle, I think you're going to start to see the run lanes open up for Saquon Barkley. But if they can't, sustain drives and they need explosive plays, or they need to live off, old buddy legs and Jalen Hurts legs, they're gonna lose. He gonna get hurt and they're gonna lose. They gotta find a way to either, continue to make timely explosive plays, which is gonna be hard, especially going through the playoffs, or they need to find a way to sustain drives, right? I think that's the answer for them offensively. Now, if we really keeping it a bean, defensively for them, it's just for them getting Jalen Carter in shape, getting him serious and focused. And I think that's what it is. Defensively, just get into a rhythm. They started getting into a rhythm. They starting to get healthy right now. And that's pretty much it. They'll find a way to generate a pass rush and all those things I'm really not concerned about. Now, for the Detroit Lions, I would say probably, going into this game, you want to establish the run. All right. You want to establish that run. Regardless, you want to go in there and you want to establish the run. So you want to run the ball, get a rhythm, play action, and that's pretty much about it. And you want to, Quinyon Mitchell is a great corner, getting beat a little bit this year. That's going to fucking happen. That's going to happen because people got tape on them and all that stuff. But ultimately, they want to run the ball, get the ball to their running backs in the flats and all of that type of stuff. And when that continues to happen, and then you could take shots down the field. So I think run the ball, move the chains over the middle. I think Philadelphia is going to try to stack that box, stop the run. I also think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to take away the middle of the field. So I really think the Lions have to sit there and find a way to throw outside the hashes, try to run out, get some stuff down the field. There will be opportunities to get balls down the field. All right. So they have to do that. Protect, run the ball, get the balls down the field. But defensively for them, don't let Saquon get the going. Keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket. Take away those explosive plays. Make them dinking and dack it. Yeah, you heard me. Ding and dack it underneath. And I think that's the ticket. So ultimately, I think it's a good measuring stick for Dan Campbell as a play caller, as the offense. I think this stamps them as, okay, our offense really has turned the corner because Green Bay only put up 7 points. I would say the Lions are probably going to win a 24-21 type of game. All right. That's what I'm going to say. 21-24 type of game. Points are going to be tough by Philadelphia defense is real as Alroy Steele, but that's just my opinion on it, man. So I like the Lions by 3. They won't cover. They will not cover that spread. What I say, 24-21? Yeah, they won't cover that spread. It's almost close, but I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think it get jiggy late, but I like the Lions by 3. Appreciate y'all. Check out Detroit Lions prediction playlist. Peace.